your dreams down. Be specific. So if you dream of owning a home, make sure that house is the biggest in the neighborhood. If you dream about owning a luxury car, make sure it's a Bugatti. If you dream that you'll have $1 million in your bank account, make sure that it's 10 million and 100 million. I need you to go into your beyond. And as life continues on, I watch my grandma, and she served and she praised God, and she helped every person that came in her space. It's crazy, I just thought about this. All that time and all the things that she gave and the sacrifice and the work and the hard life that she had, I have never heard my grandma complain a single time in her entire life. Can you imagine going and never complaining? I think I tried that once. That may have lasted 24 hours. I continued on in my dreams. I received a full scholarship to the University of Connecticut. And when I graduated from the University of Connecticut, I became the first Black woman for the largest brokerage firm in the country, Solomon Smith Barney, now known as Morgan Stanley. I was the youngest of 43,000 brokers. And I transitioned to the pharmaceutical industry, and I continued to dream. I finished my MBA. I finished my doctorate degree, my cardiopulmonary specialty degree. While I was working there, I was Rookie of the Year, I was Rep of the Year, and I was doing it, and I'm like, girl, you got this, you're doing it. Continue on, because I'm living in this beyond. And every year I got promoted because I never said no. No matter where they wanted to send me, it was a promotion, a better opportunity. I said, yes, bring it on, I'm coming. I went from Connecticut to Florida, and then they promoted me the last time to California. And I got to California. They didn't interview me, which is a standard process of the company, interview each candidate for promotions, because my accolades and my accomplishment was so great that they did not need to interview me. I got to California, and I had scheduled lunch with my boss. And I was sitting down in the restaurant, and he strolled in, suit and tie, average-looking white man. And he sat there, and he came over, and we greeted. And as soon as he sat down, he looked over at me, and he said, I didn't know that you were Black. And at the time, I thought nothing of it, because this company had been awarding my accomplishments and my hard work. Okay, he's surprised. He's surprised that I'm Black, no big deal. But the very next day, everything that was approved before I got to California started being disapproved. And in the blink of an eye, I found myself in a coma. And you're wondering, how did you get in a coma, girl? What happened to you? I remember sitting at the dining table on my computer, and that was my last memory. I woke up 8 days later with my head, it was as big as a watermelon. The pain was so painful. I couldn't speak. I couldn't walk. When they intubated me, my larynx was clipped. But I wanted so badly to be back in Florida. They put me on the airplane. I was wheelchair bound. There was a layover in Atlanta. The flight attendant escorted me off the aircraft and placed me in a corner. And she said, someone's going to come and get you to get to your next destination. And 3 hours later, I cried, and I waved, and I signaled, and no one came to my rescue. A young girl came close enough to me for me to whisper what I thought would be scream, but words were barely coming out of my mouth. And I said to her, "Can you please help me get to my next destination?" And she granted me the blessing. And she got someone who brought me to my next destination. And during that time, I realized that the disabled was invisible to the world. And I heard the voice of God saying, "This is your turn to care for people who cannot care for themselves." And I heard my grandmother's voice in the back of my head saying, "Dream so big, nobody else can believe it, and you not believe it neither. Dream so big that not even you believe that these dreams can come true." And I started my first company, Bailey's Medical Equipment and Supplies. And the first year, I started really small. I was a 600 square feet space. It was my warehouse, and it was my office, and it was my showroom. I figured it out. And at the time, they had just implemented Medicare competitive bid. But it wasn't in the area where I was. But I said, let me do this bid. I know for sure I will not win any of these bids because I don't have enough volume and I don't have enough money. But I'm going to do these bids anyways because I will know when it comes to my area what mistake I have made so that I can actually get it so I won't go out of business. And I remember being in the office 1 year later. The FedEx guy showed up and he had an envelope in his hand, and I knew it was around that time that they announced who win these bids. And I took the envelope from his hand and I walked, scared, nervous, frightened, and I knew it was going to tell me, "Try next time." And I went back into the office and I sat down and I bowed my head and I said, "God, I don't know what's in this envelope, but I pray your blessings will flow." And I opened the envelope and it said, "Congratulations. You have won every single category in every single area that you have vetted for." In our darkest days, oftentimes lead to our greatest light. When you think that they have counted you out, when everyone else has counted you out, you have never counted out yourself because God is with you and He will sustain you and He'll make sure that no matter what your obstacles are, no matter where you are in your space, He will carry you through. And I continue to dream, and now I'm starting to live in this beyond that my grandma told me to live. And medical equipment and supplies came about, and since that time, the journey has been challenging because now they know who I am and they know who to target. And so I get targets. So when I used to charter, I own my own aircraft now, but when I used to charter, every single time I get to the aircraft, no matter who's with me, it could be my 15-year-old son, they will always go to the man. No matter what. And my cousin would send them back to me and said, "It's her," and they go back to the man.